Hello, hello, everyone. Welcome, friends. Our guest today is like an American ronin, which is essentially a samurai without a master. Red here has spent a lot of time in the Navy, serving in Iraq over there. He has spent years with Blackwater, doing some crazy shit in Japan and Afghanistan and stuff like that. He's done quite a bit in Africa as well. And he's recently made the move, over the last couple of years, he's made the move from masterless warrior into hyper-local urban agriculture. Give it up for my friend, Richard Brion.
Wait, no applause?
My name is Brion Schoenborn. I'm an explorer of people, places, and culture. In my travels spanning over 20 countries across 4 continents, I've had the pleasure of engaging in authentic conversations with amazingly interesting people. These are their stories, on location and unfiltered. Presented by 8B Media, this is Half the City. Dude, this is fucking lo-fi, bro. There's just a couple of microphones and a goddamn recording studio. Not even a studio. There's a makeshift. This is a private couch-filled office in a WeWork. There's nothing more to it. It's the microphones, Adobe Audition. I'm not going to tell you any more about that, but that's pretty much it.
I mean, it could be worse. We could be in a coffee shop trying to do this. It does happen.
Yeah. Let me get that a little bit closer to you.
Oh, getting up close and personal now, are we?
Yeah, I mean, you want to keep it about a fist, you know, just so it captures. You want to fist it. I'm creasing the gears right now.
Yeah.
Oh shit. So Richard, Red, I'm gonna call you Red because we know.
Yeah, makes sense.
We know the situation.
I'm a ginger bastard anyway.
This guy's fucking beard matches his grape.
Yeah, pretty much. I was watching this thing the other day where he's a YouTube star, and he was making fun of the fact that he doesn't tan, and he's like, I just go from white to red, and he's like, is tan the color after red? Because I never seem to get that far. Well, yeah, that's about the size of it when it comes to my head. So
I don't think I've ever seen you not red.
Yeah, I mean the name fits. Right? You know, what can I say?
Yeah. So, dude, let's get into it a little bit. You were telling me the other day you just came back from a couple of backpacking trips, right?
Yeah, here in Washington State.
Tell me about that. I want to hear about this, and then I want to go into that other stuff. But like, this is the most recent shit, so let's hear about this.
Yeah, so it was just their backpacking trips in an area, and then Alpine Lakes Wilderness here in Washington. You have to have a permit for. It's a lottery permit, and you get to spend, between a couple of days and up near 2 weeks out there, just kind of packing around, seeing these really awesome alpine lakes that, are pretty much untouched and fairly pristine.
Nice.
Mountain goats are super aggressive up there. It's actually kind of funny. Yeah, they for whatever reason, there's not a lot of naturally occurring salt, and they're addicted to salt. So humans urinate. Goats come try to get the salt out of it.
So they're drinking pee?
Yeah, basically. So they ask you to
fucking Bill Grylls in animal form.
Yeah, so basically they ask you to, urinate on the rocks because it makes it so when the goats go after it, they don't decimate the plant life and everything else. So
they encourage you to pee on the rocks.
Well, yeah, so that it doesn't, so that way the goats don't end up tearing everything up. But
nice.
Funny thing is the goats have gotten so used to it that they actually become a little bit aggressive about it, trying to get as close to you as possible.
Give me your pee!
Pretty much.
There's a fucking crackhead, like, I will suck your dick for some pee.
Yeah, so basically, there was a couple of girls in the group that kind of actually almost got like chased down for it. It was pretty funny. In the morning, you just even trying to just go check out one of the lakes and a waterfall just to take pictures, and you look up and there's a goat there. Like, are you gonna pee? Like. You're like, wait a minute.
Giving you the look.
Yeah, and they follow you down there, and they basically, like, oddly feels like they've got you pinned up against this rock face. Like, either you pee or I knock you off the cliff. But, I mean, Outside of that, it was pretty awesome. We got to see a deer right up close. They really didn't care too much that we were around. And then on the way down from the second trip as well, there was a pretty sizable buck that basically was just standing there staring at us like, what's up, people? So they kind of get it's odd. They're still pristine. They still come around, but then they're getting used to humans enough, and as we're not being too much of a threat, that they kind of just leave you alone.
Nice.
And then, of course, we had one of my friends that I grew up with since the time we were like 10. He came out with us, and he ended up leaving his tent open just a smidge, and a little field mouse came in.
Oh, shit.
And he's not really afraid of much, but he screams like a girl when a mouse gets in his tent. And that's not to say a bad thing about screaming like a girl, but when he's got a voice that isn't well suited for that falsetto scream. So when I'm saying scream like a girl, it's more of it's this high-pitched sound that he makes that isn't within his normal vocal range. So it's pretty interesting. Woke us up, and but the lakes were amazing. We got to see some peaks, mountains and stuff, or ranges, and then we got to see some crazy people actually doing some approaches and some straight up rock climbs on what's called Prusik. So yeah, it was a good time. Lots of cool stuff to see. Got it to kind of clear out, not have to pay attention. And one thing, the water tastes better. Even though you have to filter it, it really tastes better.
I bet, man.
And it's so cold, which is so awesome.
Really? It's that fresh mountain water.
Yeah, right? It's most of it's all glacier or snow base filled. And there was still snow up there, oddly enough, at the tail end or the middle of July in Washington State in the North Cascades. So yeah, we even got to do a little snow sliding.
Nice.
Yeah. In order to get places a little bit faster and more fun.
Nice. So for people listening, we're currently in Seattle. In case you haven't realized it at this point, this show is pretty fucking mobile. I got to make sure that you guys know that where we are right now, so you have some reference, right? Maybe some imagination as to like, look, Seattle is fucking surrounded by goddamn mountains
and water.
And water, exactly. I mean, there's so much water, so much mountains, the Alpines, like you're talking about, the Cascades.
And for those of you East Coasters, you don't know mountains till you've been here.
Dude,
the Appalachians are hills.
I remember when I was in Boston, people were like, "Oh, we're gonna go to Killington in Vermont," and I like check it out, and it's like fucking like ice.
Yeah,
like bunny, like their black diamonds are like bunny hills.
Yeah.
Like, okay, all right, buddy, check out. Why don't you come by Colorado sometime, or check out Seattle or Tahoe or Big Bear, right?
Yeah. See some actual mountains.
I've only gone skiing once, and the one time it was at Breckenridge, and my buddy, who is like he's a big time snowboarder, and his brother-in-law is a professional snowboarder and snowboard instructor and shit. And he's like, here, have some fucking skis. And he takes me down the blues first. I don't even know what the fuck I'm doing, dude. It was intimidating. Let's put it that way. I mean, I did it.
I don't know about you, but that's sort of how I learned how to swim. It was just
like, you just fucking throw it in there.
Here's a lake. Just you're getting tossed out of the boat, and you'll figure it out or you don't. I mean, sometimes it's the best way to learn things. Sometimes it doesn't work out so well.
I just remember, dude, the first time I went down, like I got off the ski lift and I didn't know how to stand up. So I'm like crouching, like my ass is almost touching the fucking snow.
Trying to figure out.
And I'm still moving forward. I'm like, oh shit.
I'm already moving. I'm not even standing.
And then I was going down the hill, dude, and I'm like not far from the ski lift, like I could see it in the distance. I could see people like going up, and I fell, and my both skis fell off my feet, right? And like I tried to stand up to go after the skis, and I fucking sunk like waist deep in the goddamn snow.
You post hold on that. Yeah, that's awesome.
And people are looking at me. They're like from above. They're going, "Hey, are you okay?" And I'm just like, leave me alone in my fucking misery.
I'll just slide down. Yeah, I'll just get on my stomach and slide down.
Right.
That's hilarious. But no, yeah. So to get into this to get up into this part of the mountains, though, you have to earn it. It's about 6 miles from the trailhead to the top, but the last mile, you end up, or it's 0.9 of a mile, you end up taking on something in the neighborhood of like 2,000 feet of elevation gain. Yeah,
That's pretty intense, dude.
Yeah, it was definitely pretty interesting. It took us. There's 3 little pockets of our group. The first guy, it took longer to eat lunch at the bottom than it did to get up for him to walk up it. But
really,
then again, he's former Marine as well.
He's like a mountain goat, basically.
Yeah, he's former Marine mountain goat and spent time in Iraq. And he basically did it in, if not 2 hours, or if it took him the full 2 hours, it was somewhere hour 45, 2 hours. We were a little behind him. Took us about 2 hours and 45, and then. The stragglers in our group still did pretty good. They did it just over 3 hours.
Wow.
Just for that 0.9 miles. And we're talking 0.9 of a mile. That's not even that far, and it took, nearly 3 hours.
3 hours. That's crazy, dude.
Yeah, it moves up. I forget what the pitch ends up being, but you're definitely doing, for every foot forward, you're definitely doing some feet up. So... And it definitely burns out the quads.
Oh, for sure, dude. No, that reminds me...
Especially carrying 50 pounds.
Right. I mean, that reminds me when I was in Beijing, me and 3 of my friends, we went camping on the Great Wall. And so my buddy Yo, shout out to Yosef. What up? He's in Hong Kong right now. But he actually hiked the Great Wall like 40-something times. He recently scaled. He recently did Mount Everest, right? Base camp, and he did it without a fucking Sherpa. Like he mapped it out himself, and like this dude's a fucking hiker, dude. Let's put it that way. But he mapped out this stretch of the wall because it's technically illegal to camp on the Great Wall. So we found the stretch because it's 3,000 miles long or whatever it is. So there's parts that are like unrestored. Not a lot of people go to.
Yeah, you get too far out. Yeah.
And he mapped out this stretch, which was crazy. It was like rubble, dude. So for anybody if you don't know much about the Great Wall, if you haven't been there, it's 3,000 miles, but it's along a mountain spine. It's like on the ridge, right? So like when we get to this stretch, not only was there like no parking area, it was just fucking out in the boonies, right? But, we stayed the night, so we had our backpacks full of food and water and all that other stuff. And I swear to God, the first 45 minutes was like scrambling, like hand and feet up this mountain ridge. Just to get to the wall, dude.
Yeah, I mean, you'd have to, because based on geographically where it is.
Right.
I mean, there is a mountain range in between Mongolia and China, so.
I mean, that's why they built the wall, to keep the goddamn Mongolians out.
Yeah, I mean... And it worked for a long time.
It did.
But they figured it out.
They did.
I mean, just ask the cons.
Exactly. Well, I think they built it to keep the cons out.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Genghis and all the, I think Kublai Khan might have figured it out. But
I can't remember if it was Kublai or if it might have been Kublai that figured it out. But
but it was. It was an ordeal, but it was, that was kind of cool. Like, as an aside, like, that was kind of cool to, like, be in this area. Like the touristy areas of the Great Wall is, like, full of people.
Oh, yeah.
Right? I mean, they were restored in the last, like, 30 years, so it's all, like, new-looking brick and shit like that. But just, like, it's, like...
Easy to get to, takes good photos. Yeah.
Right. So, like in Chinese slang, they say, Ren Shang, Ren Hai. Which means people mountain, people sea, which is just like fucking people everywhere.
Yep.
Kind of like when you're at a sports game or a concert and you're leaving, kind of like that, but like all day, every day. Right?
Yep.
So
Tokyo's pretty much that way, all day, every day, everywhere.
But Tokyo people have this sense of common courtesy.
Oh, of course.
So it's a little bit different.
But I mean, there is just a ton of people everywhere.
I love China. I love Beijing. Don't get me wrong. But there's they've got some room to grow in terms of stuff like that.
Yeah, but there's not a culture on the planet that doesn't.
Of course. But so the point being with that long-winded thing, like the point being is that we found the stretch where we didn't see a single other person for a day and a half, dude, on the Great Wall. Right? Like, it's crazy. So I can relate in a sense to like the scaling and like being in the middle of nowhere and all that other shit.
It's quite nice. It really is. I was talking to another person about it a couple weeks ago that it can be one of those temporary transformative things where the world's just getting to you. You're looking for a reset on everything. Some people think that you need a near-death experience to really kind of set your course or to end up really influencing your life. No, something like that
Sometimes you just need to be like out in the middle of nowhere. Like for example, I like I really enjoy stand-up paddleboarding. And I like it, for the workout, of course, but like what I really like about it is I can be 100 yards out from the beach, but I'm miles away from anybody.
Yeah. It can be that simple.
Yep.
But yeah, so you don't have to go so crazy and do 30 miles in 4 days in order to really kind of get it. But it can be anything for some people.
Exactly.
I mean, I've got a friend that does it in music. He goes out to his garage, and that basically changes his life for a while.
Yeah.
Until the people creep back in.
Exactly. That sounds really cool. So tell me a little bit about, like, let's go back. I want to go back. Like, talk about your Navy stuff. Talk about your Blackwater shit. Because, even with this backpacking stuff, like, there's stuff that's, like, I'm sure there's stuff that you took from there that's still relevant to this sort of thing, right?
Yeah, I mean, more so the Blackwater days and the post-military contractor days. I did a lot more trampling around in the mountains, places like Afghanistan, which oddly enough, in Afghanistan and New Mexico, sorry New Mexico, but I mean, you're just the Afghanistan of the United States. Geographically, it's pretty much the same, the way the structure...
Shout out to New Mexico.
Yeah, the way the structure of the cities are set up, it's actually oddly similar. You've got the Albuquerque to Santa Fe, which is pretty much your Kabul to Bagram kind of thing. And then you go up into the Taos Mountains in New Mexico, and that's like heading up towards the Salong Pass of Afghanistan. Looks pretty much the same. Probably a good reason that Jarhead, the movie, was filmed actually in Albuquerque.
Was it?
Yeah, so there's a whole lot to it, and I guess I shouldn't shout so badly in this microphone before I start creating some feedback.
You can shout all you want, dude. It's all good.
It sounded like I was getting a little bit of
well, if you see it turning
reverb.
red, you see it turning red, that's when you know that you're saying too much.
That I'm saying too much or too loud.
It's like
I probably already said.
It's the pack it up.
Yeah, it's the Supreme Court light. You're green, you're good. Yellow starts to run out of time. You hit red, and stop talking. Yeah. But yeah, so I mean, Afghanistan. I learned quite a bit about being able to carry weight through mountainous terrain and whatnot, and. One of the things you learn that's interesting is when you're going downhill is foot placement can be incredibly important in terms of how you do it and the heel stomp activity that most people don't do only when they're in snow. It actually helps out quite a bit.
What is this heel stomp activity?
So we have a tendency to walk heel toe, or when we're going downhill, or runners do, they go more to a mid strike to where the middle of their foot is. But if you actually kind of lean back, stand straight up when you got weight, and you kind of straighten your leg and then drop your heel first solidly into the loose terrain, whether that's sand or snow, and then you kind of cant your feet outward, almost like you're doing a kind of like a military salute stance. You get that 45-degree angle, and you just set your feet that way.
Heels together, feet slightly apart, toes slightly apart.
Yeah, and then just kind of step each one at a time that way, and it makes for good, solid footing when you're coming down. And you can move pretty quick downhill that way.
That's interesting. Like
I learned it from, oddly enough, I learned it from the Afghans. I grew up around mountains, and it's not something I'd ever done, and I see them run down these steep, sandy faces, and I'm like, wait a minute, how did you do that?
Yeah,
they're like, crazy. And they know how to do it.
So that reminds me of this time I did a 3-day 2-night homestay in northern Vietnam, like Sapa Valley. It was the foothills of the Himalayas, right?
Yeah.
I was in good cycling shape at that point, so like my legs were strong or whatever, but like my guide was this lady. She was like, I don't know, probably 30-ish. But like fucking 4 feet tall. She was tiny. Minority village person, that sort of thing. And she wore these sandals, these cheap ass plastic sandals with just that wide band that goes across. So it's not a thong, it's not anything like that. And holy shit, dude, she just boop, 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 up and down, up and down, like no beaten path. Right, like we were going up and down these Himalayan the foothills, right?
Yeah,
just going up and down the stuff like mud path, and she's just flying, dude. And like so, I took it upon myself. I'm like, I got to keep up with her. Yeah, point of pride, right?
Spoken like a true Marine.
Exactly.
That reminds me, one time in Thailand, they've got the little Muay Thai boxers.
Oh, sure, yeah.
They always have to tell the Marines when you come into port, don't get in, don't do it. Sure enough, there's always a Marine that's like, I can try this dude. And the funniest ones are when they're like 14, 15-year-old kids.
Oh,
and
yeah.
you think that, I'm a big bad Marine, that the Marine Corps trained me. And then
This guy looks scrawny.
Yeah, within seconds, they get their ass whooped by this little 4-foot tall, 85-pound Thai kid that, is just tough as nails. But spoken like a true Marine, I'll take it upon myself to keep up with him.
Right? It's a point of pride, man.
Yeah,
the few, the proud. That's how we roll.
Yeah. The few, the proud, all right.
The few, the proud, the dumb as fuck.
Well, unfortunately, isn't it an old biblical proverb that says pride cometh before the fall?
There it is. Spoken like a true squid.
Some of us we try to finesse it a little bit rather than just brute force everything.
Fall gracefully.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit more about this Afghanistan stuff. So this was when you were working with Blackwater, or was this?
Yeah. So
what time frame was this?
So this is like, when was that? It was like 2004 or 5-ish.
Oh, okay. So that's like the heat of Afghanistan.
It was in a weird transition. Like right at the beginning, it was on that transitioning period from still being really hot in everywhere to where then Kabul and some of the other places, Bagram and whatnot, even parts of Nangarhar and whatnot, it kind of had settled down to kind of an equilibrium for quite some time. We were able to go.
Was this before or after they put Karzai in power?
This was during Karzai.
During Karzai. Okay.
Karzai had been in for a couple of years by this point, I think, or at least a year.
I'm just trying to refresh my memory because I was active during 9/11, right? I didn't serve obviously, but I didn't go over there obviously for reasons out of my control. But my unit was the first to go to Iraq, right?
Yeah.
But it was Afghanistan first. So it was 9/11, Afghanistan, and then for whatever reason they said, hey, we got to go to Iraq too, which is bullshit, but that's a whole other thing. Were
you First Marines?
My unit was 3-1.
3-1?
3rd Battalion, 1st Marines. We were IMF. We fought in Fallujah.
Yeah,
we were the first battle in Fallujah.
My buddy that's Border Patrol, he was in Afghanistan at the time before I met him. Yeah. He was active duty Marine for 3-1.
No shit.
Yeah, he was. Do you know
what company he was in?
311, I want to say.
Well, no,
3-1.
No. It was 3-1, and then it was. So I was weapons company.
Yeah,
but it was like Lima, India, and Kilo.
I would have to ask him, but
was he a rifleman or was he a weapons guy?
He was infantry, straight up grunt. He was
0311.
Yeah, he was 0311. He was the sergeant for his platoon.
Wow.
The actual the Soldier of Fortune magazine, actually at one point there was a photo taken. So he was the Marine sergeant that was actually tasked with doing the Marcus Luttrell recovery after everyone. And the interesting story was we were in the same place basically at the same time, didn't know each other yet. So was with Blackwater. We were in Kabul.
We might have even been in boot camp together. That's weird.
I think he's younger. I think he's younger, but so he's closer. But yeah. So anyway, so
3-1 didn't. We were not in Afghanistan. The unit that went to Afghanistan before, like the first ones in, was 1-5.
Yeah,
First Battalion.
I had them backwards.
They were also.
I was thinking it was 1-5 Iraq, 3-1.
No, 1-5 was Afghanistan. They were also based in Camp Pendleton. They were near us, so I was in Camp Horno, which is kind of it's like the coastal, kind of north-ish area. 1-5 was right at the border of the base. I hope I'm not giving away government secrets. Sorry, government. But ish,
Yeah.
But kind of at the, kind of near the border between San Diego and Orange County.
Yeah, and but the interesting thing is so during the whole lone survivor incident, I was in Kabul with Blackwater, and a bunch of the Blackwater team were former SEALs that were actually good friends with a lot of those guys.
Holy shit, man.
So when it went down twice, we actually were planning taking a helicopter down to Nangarhar and getting out towards that area and jumping into the recovery mission until there was a. And at first we were having the green light, and then somebody decided it was probably not the right idea to have private contractors handling that kind of thing. So my buddy, because helicopters and air support was off limits because of the 2 helicopters getting shot down, so he was the sergeant that led the platoon on foot to go in, and they got ambushed. And then during the ambush, I still don't know, and I'm not sure even he knows how the photograph was taken, but it ended up becoming one of the Marine Corps' coins as well. There's a picture of Marines squatting down behind a rock, one with a rifle aimed, the other one making a phone call. And that photo made Soldier of Fortune, and it was also made a Marine Corps coin. And my buddy's is one of those 2 guys that are memorialized in that coin.
That's crazy, dude.
Then he ended up coming contractor, working with me in Blackwater in Japan. Then we went to Iraq together with another contracting company.
So for the listeners out there, let me explain what a private contractor for Blackwater is in terms that you can understand. He's a fucking mercenary. Right? I mean, you're for hire security services in some of the most dangerous parts of the world. Is that accurate? Is that fair?
Yeah, pretty much.
You're just like, yeah, whatever, that's all the day's work.
Well, I mean, it's a perspective thing, right?
Yeah, for sure, of course.
So I sit down and I watch the show The Deadliest Catch from time to time, the crazy-ass crab fisherman, and I think that is the craziest, stupid job.
That's a crazy fucking job. But that also pays well.
Well,
it pays
of course
super
it
well.
does.
It's like 6 months, and they make like 6 figures in 6 months.
Yeah, of course. But to me, I think that it's crazy. It's a crazy-ass job. Now, a good chunk of those guys would think that what I was doing back in the day as a contractor with Blackwater and all this stuff was crazy stupid. And I mean, when you think about it, there's some dumb things, and we called it delayed death a little bit. That you were dead being there. It was just a matter of if your card got called while you were actually in country or not. Right. But it's perspective. For me, those Deadliest Catch people were way crazier than I was doing. Yeah. But then again, it's because I was doing a job that I was well trained to do and well equipped for.
Sure.
And I knew my equipment no different than an electrician knows his pliers and his wire strippers and everything else. No different than a crab fisherman knows his nets and gear. For me, I always thought the distinction is that humans are a lot more predictable than nature. So when you're out there, even when you're surprised in an ambush, there's still things that humans do that are predictable on some level. So you can still make plans on some degree, and you can still rely on them with some level of reliability, but nature just does whatever the hell it wants. I mean,
there's no stopping nature.
Even when there's weather predictions and weather forecasts. I mean,
the weathermen are never right, man.
Yeah, especially in these places, right? So, I mean, and you were in China too, the South China Sea.
They've got typhoons all the time.
I know, and it's so unpredictable. Yeah. So you're going out into this thing against effectively an opponent or a foe that you can't predict anything. You're just flying by the seat of your pants all of the time, hoping for the best. So, I mean, I guess that's what perspective is. So yeah, it was some crazy environments. Afghanistan, Kabul, Nangarhar, Salong, up there. In Iraq, I was in Baghdad proper, but then we were in Diwania, which, if you want to go look that up, that was a fun show at some point.
Let's look it up right now. I want to see what you're talking about.
So it was Camp Echo in Diwania. So this camp, how do you spell it? DIW. AN. Oh, there it is, right there. Diwania, Iraq. So it's a couple hours south of Baghdad.
I'll post information on this when we do that, when we post the show. But
look at that. Polish troops in Iraq, Camp Echo. So so basically it was this little postage stamp of a forward operating base in central Iraq near the Najaf province. But this thing was so small. I mean, it was literally probably the size of a small school compound.
The camp or the town?
The entire camp.
Wow.
In this town. Yeah, and so they had this tire factory in town and whatnot, and so it was first
the last place you would expect a military encampment to be.
Yeah, it was that's
good shit.
But it was kind of a key point for the Najaf province for the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. But so initially, post the invasion and us trying to figure out what to do, we brought in the coalition. The Spanish took it. And no offense to those Spaniards out there, but you lost it. You got overrun. And it's because the
Shout out
city.
to Spain.
Yeah. And I mean, and to be fair, it wasn't a super large base. The area would go through ebbs and flows where the insurgency would build up and it would dissipate, but eventually they got overrun. So then the Polish took over. And they were the ones running the camp when we were there with a small contingent of U.S. Army military police. And so, and basically it was this kind of school kids playing with each other where the Polish would completely be out in town in full force, and then they would slowly start drawing back towards the base. The insurgency would get more and more emboldened by it, and then at some point we ended up having to drop a Moab, which is a mother of all bombs, into the middle of the city, kind of reset the situation. The Polish went back out, they kind of held it, and then they got drawn back to the base. So Diwanee was probably the dodgiest place I was. We were getting rocketed pretty much every night.
These are RPGs, right?
Or like full-on 155 Katyushas.
I'm not familiar with that.
So usually, 155s are your largest. You can, or some of the largest. They're a lot louder, bigger than a standard mortar. They're 155 millimeter.
Mortars are no joke. I remember I had some mortarmen in my cat platoon.
Yeah, and
those guys are pretty hard.
I mean, rules of engagement were starting to change as well. So we weren't allowed to specifically do straight up counter battery. Which, for those that don't know, counter battery just means we use a sound to triangulate a rough position of where they might have been coming from, and then you just rocket everything back, which is effective in certain circumstances, but at the same time,
it's also
there can
essentially
be
spray and pray.
Yeah, there can be significant collateral damage, and so we were drawing back on that. And the problem was they were putting their rockets and stuff into mounts in the back of pickup trucks. So basically, even by the time you were able to get a three pinks triangulation for a counter battery, the truck had already moved. So even, and then you're firing even within 30 seconds to a minute. If it was that fast, truck could still fire and move. So the likelihood of you actually hitting the target that was rocketing you was small. So then, we get rocketed every day. And of course, we were contractors. We had a Polish dude that was former French Foreign Legion, some British special boat guys, special air guys on the team, couple of Army greenie beanies.
When you say special boat and special air, you're talking like special forces, right?
Yeah. So basically
you're a motley crew of badass motherfuckers, basically.
Yeah. So the British, they have their SAS and their SBS, so their special air service and their special boats, which is kind of basically the SAS would be sort of like it's a cross somewhere between our Army Special Forces and our U.S. Air Force paratroopers in terms of responsibility. Right. And then special boats are basically like their version of a Navy SEAL.
Oh, okay.
And then we had also some Royal Marine Commandos, so kind of like our recon Marines and whatnot. So we had a hodgepodge of British, American, and European guys that were on this team, all well trained, but also a little bit mad in the head, as they would say, because
you kind of have to be a little off to go to do some of that stuff,
Well, a little bit, yeah. And then it got even more strange. So we lived kind of nearest to where the Marine, or not where the Marine, where the Army Military Police Unit was. So every evening the rocket
they had their hands full.
Oh, they definitely did. But every evening the rockets always came in right around the same time. Everybody else is all hunkered down in places, and we get our chow, we come back, then we all sit around the proverbial campfire, just bullshitting with our gear, our guns, our body armor.
As these bombs are going off.
And basically we're having what we called our mortar tea parties. We were drinking tea and biscuits, cookies and tea, waiting for the mortars to start. And then the gear was all preset, because then we'd have to repel boarders, which again, for those that don't know what that means that they would use the rockets in order to distract us, because we're all hiding. Hopefully then they could storm the walls. So basically it was this kind of tit for tat thing. They'd rocket us, then they would try to mount a an offensive to come over the wall. So you have to have your gear with you in the mortar shelters to be ready for it. So we just kind of sat around every day just having a chat, kind of like we're having right now, just bullshitting, laughing, and just waiting for them. And some of those Army military police guys thought we were batshit crazy.
Of course.
And I mean, maybe
they have every right to think that.
Well, yeah, and maybe we were, but like I said, those guys that go pick up crab fishing jobs in Alaska, they're crazier than me.
But that's the thing that I'm talking about, right? Like in the Marines, like my Marine Corps training, even as short as it was, like one of those things is you realize that like you can be in the middle of experiencing fucking hell, dude. But what you realize that if you're there with somebody else, and you can sit there and bullshit about stuff while this is all happening, it's a completely different thing, dude.
It
makes it manageable.
Well, yeah, it does, and I mean, Afghanistan was the same way. So that circa 2004, 2005, it got to the point where we were allowed to go out in town. There were Lebanese restaurants, French restaurants.
You were allowed to go off base and
so as Blackwater, we lived in our own compound anyway. We also we were help training counter narcotics police for the government of Afghanistan. We were doing those kinds of things. So we weren't doing a lot of things directly with U.S. military. We were getting support from them so we could access military installations. Sure. We got intel from them. Of course, since we were working in the same sphere, we also had to have crypto to be able to talk back and forth so that we could deconflict, so that in the event that we were out on our own thing and in the middle of a fight and U.S. military or ISAF forces were in the middle of a fight, we could make sure that we weren't shooting at each other. Kind of important. You know, blue on blue.
Crypto meaning encrypted messaging.
Yeah, encrypted radio. Yep. You know, the big old. You see them.
So you're free to talk, but nobody can intercept it.
Yeah, exactly. So basically, you see them on any of those military movies. Yep. You know, the guy standing back there with the little, what looks like an antique headset phone,
one of my
yelling
buddies
into
was
it.
A comm guy, man. Yeah. That was you lick it before you stick it. When you put that little, you put the antenna on, you gotta
the old Mark 17, you know, the different radios and whatnot, and then they came up with some slightly better ones, but the range was different. So, I mean, we were out there doing, but we could go. They have an Intercontinental Hotel in Kabul, no joke. From the Intercontinental Hotel Group, it's still there. As of 2018, when I was there last in Kabul, it's a little bit harder to get to and from these days. But back then, there was you could go get a proper massage at the hotel. You could go for lunch or whatever, and they had a swimming pool you could take in. They even had a lake resort just outside Kabul that had a golf course that we could go.
Oh, that's crazy. No, so it sounds like you were pretty like ingrained into Kabul and the you know the local culture a little bit. Like, did you stand out like a sore thumb, or like what, you know? Tell me a little bit about this. Like,
for the most part,
with the Afghans and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, for the most part, of course, we stood out like sore thumbs. But then again, there was enough Western and ISAF forces that there was no real distinguishment between who was who and who was what. I mean, contractors, we kind of dressed like each other, but then again, contractor dress looks like British Special Air Service dress.
Oh, okay.
So, and then of course you have your other governmental groups and they all dress kind of however. And so it was almost impossible to distinguish one set from another. You could be at a restaurant having a meal with these people, and they could have been FBI, they could have been any other lettered soup, or they could have been a contractor, or they could have been active duty special forces. There was really no way to tell unless you got into the weeds with it. So everybody wore beards. But as far as me, oddly enough, you put the right kind of Afghan clothes on, and I have my beard grown out, and with the blue eyes, and I could look like I'm an Afghan from the Panjshir Valley, because that Russian influence through the Panjshir area. Yeah.
So did you interact with like the Afghan people, or was it mostly with the other military units?
Oh no, we were more so Afghans, and then my job was intelligence, so I was a lot more interacting with them. But there's a famous street in Kabul. It's called Chicken Street. Basically, it's every city pretty much has one. It's kind of where you go to get a lot of your tangible goods. So we could go down and get trinkets and rugs and everything else. And we used to go down to Chicken Street and you could get a suit fitted. I still have them actually in my closet. A few of the suits that an Afghan tailor put together for me. There was a barber that I would go in that would use all the old school hand tools, no power to do trims and stuff. And we used to get kids to come with us because the Afghans themselves have this, kids are off limits in terms of this thing. So Pakistanis and the Iraqis, unfortunately, don't quite have that same threshold when it comes to kids, but the Afghans do. So you get the kids that are out trying to make a buck or whatever else, and you give them some money and some food, and then they would go recruit their friends. And then when you wanted to go into a place, they would then crowd the door so that it would keep people that could be or thinking about taking advantage of the situation from doing so, because kids were off limits.
Yeah.
And then some of the elders in the village, in the city and stuff that were around didn't mind it either, because we were giving the kids some sort of value and job. You know, we were giving them food and they were helping us out. And there was a similar thing in Djibouti at one point, and I can't get into the why I was there and with who, but you pay.
I want to hear that story.
Yeah,
like, I always want to hear the ones that you can't talk about.
Yeah, I know, right? But the funny part about the story is there was a kid, and you paid him $20. He would come. He actually had this. He had the racket down. He would come. He had this big stick, and he'd be like, "I'd be your bodyguard," all in English. You know, for a couple few bucks in English, he'd tell you to be the bodyguard, and then he would have like two of his little friends, and they were and I did protection details for years, so I had all this training on doing the box and the contact rules. But
what is the box?
So the box we did. So depending on there's triangles, there's boxes. It's how you set your people up to do protection. So we always ran a 5-man box. Okay. And so basically you had 4 corners. You had 4 corners and then one in the middle standing next to the client that was basically the client director. And then, so depending on how contact goes, you could close the box and basically create a wall.
Got it.
But these 3 little kids, they had their own little version of a protective detail triangle down with sticks. And then if people got too close, they would kind of... And sometimes they even, with some of the adults in the area, they even had a little like playful ruse where the adults would kind of give them a little reason to practice. So, and then the little kid that was in charge was like, don't worry right now. And then the adults would kind of come up and play, and then they would like beat them back with the sticks and stuff to kind of keep practice. It was kind of interesting, but
enterprising, entrepreneurial.
Exactly, very entrepreneurial on how they were doing it. And in Kabul, it was that way too. There were stores that you want to go in, and the kids would go in first and kind of rush all the other people out. And again, that sounds very privileged of us. We were able to have little kids kind of push the rest of the adults out, but at the same time, like I said, it was that weird in-between phase of the community where the adults didn't mind so much because we were spending money in local shops, and we were having interactions with the kids. So in their own way, it created a sense of security for us and a peace of mind for us that we knew there wasn't someone in the store waiting. Gave the kids something to do, then we were spending money on the local economy. So we felt that we were giving back a little bit.
And you were giving the kids food and other stuff too. So they were getting benefits for their services too. Right?
Yeah, and I mean we've had a lot of the guys thought I was crazy, but had a little
right.
Well, but I mean, so there was a lot that I had to do that was by myself. So I was driving around a lot by myself places, and there was this little rig on a rickety cart that was an engine with a set of wheels, and basically you turn it on and you would feed what looked like a sugar cane through it, and then it would come out as a juice or something.
Oh yeah, sugar cane juice. Yeah. No, that's all over the place. Like I've had that in India and all.
But I didn't realize that sugar cane was something that was
literally
really
it's just
available.
Pressed cane liquid, right?
Yeah, and but at the time I wasn't completely sure there was sugar cane, because I still to this day not 100% certain that sugar cane grows naturally in Afghanistan. But in either case, it was just it was kind of dirty looking cart. But I would pull over and for $1 or whatever it was at the time, I would get one, and it's not like the United States where you pop in and they give you a bottle you take with you or whatever. It's just a glass.
Not the processed stuff.
Well, yeah, and it's just a glass that you drink it there. They take the glass,
spot, right?
Yep, they take the glass back and they wash it. So You know, a lot of guys are like, hey man, it's kind of dirty, you kind of don't know. I didn't care. I liked it. And the other thing that I really like to this day is Afghan naan. You know, you get naan everywhere else, but the Afghan naan to me is some of the best I've ever had.
So, like, how is it different from, like, Indian naan? So naan, N-A-A-N, right?
Yes.
Like the flatbread,
Yep.
right? Like
and
with the Indian food that you would, like, take and, like, scoop with the curries and stuff.
Yeah, and so you get Stonefire here in the U.S. is a brand that will make it. But it's a little bit more, I would almost say, even though it's unleavened, it's almost a little more leavened than Afghan. It's a little bit softer, which most people like bread, soft bread. But for some reason, the way that whatever it is in the recipe and that slightly more crispness to
it's
it,
crisp. It's not like a thick.
chew.
Not
Not quite like a thick chew, but it's just something about it. I could probably deal less with the fact that the way it was delivered is just a dude on a motorbike sticks it under his arm after all day.
That's what I'm talking about.
Like,
that's the real shit. That's what I love about traveling. Just diving deep and there's millions of people that like eat that, eat stuff like that or live a certain way, and you can't really understand or appreciate another culture unless you really dive.
Well, yeah, and so this is a good story, right? So I can say the guy's name now because it doesn't matter, but his name was General Asif. He was he was the general from the Afghan government. I don't know if he was specifically Afghan National Police or if he was Afghan National Army, but he had a general title, general uniform, and he was in charge of the Narcotics Interdiction Unit, which is what we called basically the Afghan version of the DEA.
Got it.
And he's no longer involved, so anybody that might be listening that thinks that they're getting any intel, he's not. But he used to think that I was so skinny, and so every time I come to his office,
you're a slim dude. You're lengthy,
but I'm heavier than people would think, right?
Sure.
And so, especially then, I was working out a couple times a day. I was eating quite a bit. When there's nothing else to do, you take your legal supplements and your protein shakes and your nitrous oxide, and you lift at the gym. Do all the bro things.
Right? No, of course. You got nothing else to do on base, in an area like that.
Yeah, and we had a lot to do, but there's still times when there's downtime. You're just in between stuff, so you work out and you make sure that you're fit to do your job.
Yeah, right. That's what I mean.
Yeah, it is part of your job, so you're fit to do your job. But he would always want to give me food, so it was meatballs and naan and chai and
General Asif always wanted to give you food.
Yeah, and so it was goat meatballs and lamb meatballs. So at first I was because I was still young, still fairly. I'd been to a few places by this point, but I was still a little bit of an isolationist when it came to the local cultures at this point. Because this happened from the moment I walked into Afghanistan and right into General Asif's office. There he is, just trying. And so he's feeding me food that I know came off of the local economy, and it wasn't specifically off of the military base that had, all of certain the what do they call it, the HAACP or whatever it is. Yeah, the HACCP, serve safe,
health standards.
Yeah, the health standards and serve safe, and they definitely didn't have their authorized food handler's permit. Right. So I was a little bit apprehensive, but. Truthfully, I got in. I didn't get sick. The only time I got food poisoning in Afghanistan was when I went to a Lebanese restaurant. That's an actual restaurant put on by Lebanese people. And to this day, I have a hard time with hummus because the only thing I ate that night was hummus because it was just there for a quick meeting. And it made me so sick, they had to banana bag me for like 3 or 4 days.
I have no idea what that means, but it doesn't sound good.
So banana bags are... They're basically an IV fluid bag that it's very bright yellow, banana in color almost. That's why we call them banana, but it's basically hydration bags.
Oh, gotcha.
The team medics and stuff, you get way too drunk, from whatever, and they would banana bag you, and it's a good way to. But I needed a banana bag for like
good
3
way to
get
your head right.
Yeah, and it was pretty gnarly.
It's funny that you talk about the food poisoning thing, right? Like. I was in Asia for almost 4 years.
Yeah.
Right? I traveled through Southeast Asia, fucking Beijing, all over China, South Korea, all over the place. Indonesia, Australia, everywhere, dude. And I dive super deep. I get local, street food, all that shit. I got food poisoning once in my 4 years there. And that
American
was
restaurant.
American barbecue restaurant.
Doesn't
the
surprise
pulled
me.
pork sandwich, dude.
Yeah.
Fucked me up. I was fucking like, it was literally like hours after I had this, dude. I was just like, I could not puke enough.
Yeah.
I was just all night long, just dry heaving. It was fucking awful, dude.
Well, no, and I'm like you. And after that point, I dove in Iraq, local food everywhere. In Japan, I ate on the local economy. A lot of the other guys that were there that came later, they were like, "Oh, there's a McDonald's there. Let's get the McDonald's on the way to work." And me, there I was with with that sticky rice with like a mayo finish, like a mayo filling in it or whatever.
That's what
and
I'm
then
talking about.
I've got the rice dishes, and I like to go to the yakiniku places, which is, you cook your own little barbecue meat.
Yeah,
on
they do that in China too. But they call it chuar.
Yeah, it's
Beijing dialect.
I'm
is
pretty
chuar.
sure it's yakiniku is what it is. I might be slightly incorrect there. It's been a while, but so for those that speak Japanese, I'm sorry for that. But it was really I loved it. The sushi. I mean, it got so local that. There was a local family that was involved in running one of the little drinky bars we'd go to. They invited me and a couple of guys back onto this barbecue out on the coast.
Nice.
And we drove out to the coast. I still remember one of the pictures. Actually, my buddy that was the Marine, he was one of those guys with us. And we took a picture of the cloud that just looked like a phallic symbol one day because one of the Japanese girls pointed it out, and so the van had a
Were they giggling
sunroof.
too? They're like,
And they're looking at the cloud. So it had a sunroof in the van we were all riding in. So I stood up through the sunroof because, of course, I'm the tallest dude in the entire van. And then I took a picture of it. So I still have the picture somewhere. But we get to the coast and we're having barbecued eel and everything, and then.
Awesome.
Uni, which for those that don't know the Japanese word,
sea urchin. So one of my favorite foods.
Yeah,
dude.
and
I
so
love
you
that.
can get it at your sushi restaurants, but the best I had ever had was the little kids were going down into the water, sticking their hand right in the water, grabbing it right out, and then we were just popping it straight out right on this remote beach in way north Honshu, Japan, the Honshu island of Japan. It was awesome.
So where were you in Japan? I mean, you were there for a while, right?
Yeah, I was there for just shy of a year.
Okay.
So we were on the far north end of Honshu.
And
so
Honshu is what? Like
Honshu is the main island of
that's the
Japan.
island where Tokyo and stuff.
Yeah, so Tokyo is on the
So when people think
southern-
of Japan, like it's primarily that island, right? And then there's Osaka, of course,
And Hokkaido up north.
Hokkaido in the north, right?
Yeah,
so Honshu is the
and then
main
you've got
island.
Okinawa, which is just right there. So
Right.
Honshu is the main.
way up there.
Yeah, so Tokyo's way south, almost on the complete opposite end of the country
Like
from us.
roughly how long of a train ride would that be or something?
So bullet train, it was like 2 hours and 45 minutes. By
bullet
car,
trains going like 200,
yeah.
200 something miles
by
an hour.
car, it's like a 12-hour drive.
Yeah, okay.
And that's down the toll road. So that's pretty much nothing else but toll road and freeway, and it's 12 hours. So basically, if you were to look on a map and you see where Misawa Air Base is, and then take a ruler and draw a straight line to the other side of the island from them on that same skinny part, that's where we were. It was called the Aomori Prefect, or Aomori Prefect would be more precise. And we were in a little town called Goshigawara. And we had to stay in a Japanese hotel. And let me tell you, I mean, this one
What kind
had
of
a
Japanese hotel was this?
So-
I've heard about a few different types of Japanese
Yeah,
hotels.
no, it wasn't any of those. But it
Not a
wasn't
love hotel?
Well, no, it was not a love hotel, and it was also not one of the space pod ones where the bed slides out.
I slept in one of those.
Yeah,
in Bangkok, I think.
Yeah,
or Saigon. One of them.
So it was still. I mean, it still was a room, a desk. It was a queen size mattress, but there wasn't really room for much other. I mean, literally, I had to take the chair out for the desk so that the bed was my chair because there was no point. You couldn't pull the desk
slept
out.
in a pod
Yeah.
that literally, like, there's a hallway, and on the left and on the right, it looks like these bunk beds, but they're walled off, and it's literally just this like elongated hole that you slide into, and it's just a bed. And there's a TV at the foot of it, so if you want to watch TV, you can, but there's nothing fucking on there anyways.
Yeah,
you can
and
understand.
I mean,
but like you slide in and then you drop down. It's like a curtain almost. You just drop it down and like you just there you go. That's my pod. Kind of like on a Navy ship.
Yeah, that
It's a lot like that, you know.
There's a Netflix original that had
Shout out to Netflix.
Yeah, shout out to Netflix, right? But it had Emma Stone and Jonah Hill, and it was it was about
I forgot what it's called, but it was about the they had the mental problems,
yeah,
right?
and they were
doing
going through a drug study
It
was set in like the 70s, but the doctors in this show, they had basically a drawer that was automated that slid out. They laid in it and it slid back into the wall.
Yeah.
Tokyo actually has some legit hotels that are sort of like that.
Nice.
But it was still tiny. It was probably less than 100 square feet for a hotel room, bathroom, shower, whole 9 yards. But
just the essentials.
Yeah,
just enough space for the essentials.
Yeah, so that's where lived in that out of that hotel for like 6.5, 7 months.
Nice.
But yeah, I went out in the local economy.
I'd probably get tired of that. A little cabin fever or something. But
yeah, but I mean, it could be worse.
Yeah,
I could be in a hooch in Iraq where it's basically just a small shipping container turned into a bedroom that then I had to walk to a shower block and then concrete T-walls everywhere. It could be worse. At least the people in Japan were nice. They had an American Harley bar in Goshigawara of all places.
Really?
Yeah, they hadn't really seen white people that frequently, or foreigners of any kind for that matter, up in that area for a long time.
Really?
But they still had an American Harley bar.
That's weird.
With all these like American Harley bar fans in this remote area of Japan. I mean, it's still city, still urban, but it's more like the difference between being in New York City and then being in like Charlotte, North Carolina.
Charlotte,
Still urban enough, but nothing like the urban density that you get out of like New York City or whatever. So
it's like a third or fourth tier city or something like that.
Yeah, I mean it was probably, I think, Aomori Prefect. Aomori, the city, is the largest. Goshigawara might have been the second largest in that prefect.
Up there.
Maybe, but I mean, still all in all, good time. I miss the food. The authentic food from Japan.
Yeah, for sure.
Don't get me wrong. I love lots of Asian food.
My Japan time ruined sushi for me anywhere else.
Yeah, there's a couple places in Seattle.
Things,
and
of course, ramen
I mean,
and shit like
Seattle's awesome because we got the ports here and the seafood's
also
so close.
A big Japanese culture here, right?
Yes,
a lot of Japanese have moved to Seattle.
Well, and so the city of Tacoma, they have a sister city that's out of Japan. And for those that don't know, Tacoma is 30 miles south of Seattle, so they've got a sister city. There's even a Japanese garden along the waterfront down in Tacoma that has an actual pagoda that's down there that you can rent out for events and stuff. So cool. I mean, it's pretty cool. You walk down there and they tell you about the sister cities. But so the food was amazing. Yep. The people are really nice, and it's something that a lot of people don't understand. Is they're even very, and I know this is going to cause some controversy, but what the hell? Let's wade into it. Yep. Proper Japanese culture is some of the most politely racist people on the planet.
Oh, for sure. I mean, they put manners above everything, right?
Yeah.
Like that, when they're learning in school and stuff, it's manners.
It's that racist thing that I'm worried that people are going to be so... like, how can you be politely racist? And I'll put it to you this way. So the Japanese word for foreigner is gaijin. And they have a sign on establishments that if you can read, which always cracked me up, if you can read Japanese, it says no foreigners, no gaijin on the sticker. But it doesn't say it in any other language.
Right.
So you learn by accident,
yeah,
right?
Exactly.
If they put it in a couple of languages, maybe... English, Spanish, and pick another fairly common European language that's highly spoken or something, and then maybe they would have less of it. But it's this yellow sticker, looks like a policeman. He's got his hand up in a red circle with a hand through it. Basically, no foreigners allowed. But of course, when you can't read Japanese, you don't know what the sticker means. Yeah. It's like, okay, I don't know. Maybe it means no bad behavior because it's a policeman.
Defeats the purpose.
Yeah, just a little bit, right? So. Don't really know, and you walk into a place, but then I went into a grocery store of all places. It wasn't like a bar, it wasn't this, it was a grocery store. And a very polite Japanese man walked over in a suit and bowed, and then very crisp English, "I'm sorry, sir, this establishment is for Japanese only. Might I suggest this other grocery store?"
Wow.
So because I
very,
was
very,
foreign,
respectful, and,
yes,
excellent manners.
Yes,
but,
the manners were great. And it was one of those things. It was like so.
Bizarre.
And again, I'm Caucasian, as we've well discussed, and I lived in the South for a while, but coming from Washington State, I kind of had a much different view on where I grew up on racism.
Yeah.
People were people. We grew up with kids that it didn't matter what color we were. We all hung out. And does that mean that that those kids didn't run into anything? Probably not. I'm sure that they did. But in terms of the way that we all grew up together, you were just Johnny or Jill or Bob or whatever your name happened to be.
More about what's on your mind and what's in your heart than anything else.
We all kind of just looked out for each other. I got to the South and I got to see it a lot differently. But in Japan, it was interesting. The guy said it, and I walked out, and it took me a full 3 or 4 minutes to
process
to be like, wait a minute, I just got kicked out of a place because I'm not Japanese. Yeah. It's because I'm foreign to the Japanese culture. Uh-huh. And then I'm like, but it was so polite. I'm like, I can't even be mad about it. Like it was the most surreal thing in the world. And I'm not saying that equates to anything what some of the other people have done, but that's what I mean when I say they're the most politely racist people. They will tell you that an establishment is for locals only, or no foreigners allowed in these establishments. But they do it in such a way that, at least for me, it took a full 5 minutes before I realized what exactly had happened. And I mean, I harbor no ill will, and again, that might be coming from a point of privilege, but I still enjoyed
anecdote,
Yeah, and I still enjoyed being in the culture. They were still very polite, and I still enjoy the food, and we did make friends, and we hung out with all kinds of them. But I mean, it was still just an odd. It was only within a 20-30 minutes of actually being in town that this happened, and then of course we learned it, but then we ended up becoming, me and two other guys, we ended up finding our own little family that we became such good friends with, that there were places we could go with them because we were with them, that we were allowed.
But that's the thing, dude, right? Like, my time in China, like, Chinese it's 99.99% Han, not even like other ethnic minorities, right? There's like 50-something other ethnic minorities in China, but they're like 0.001% of the entire population.
Well, I mean, 0.001% of the Chinese population is still a lot of people.
Well, right, but
I mean, to be fair,
right? But I mean, like Chinese have their word for foreigner is Lao Wai, which means old outsider.
Yeah.
Right, and it's kind of a similar thing in a sense. I mean, there's not necessarily. There are some places that are Chinese only, kind of like the special KTV places. But the key, like, to really dive into those aspects of the culture to kind of understand some of this stuff, is really to like become friends with these local people, right? So like you're saying, you're getting in good with this family. That probably really opened up a lot of the Japanese culture that a lot of people might not have had the experience of. Well,
it definitely did. Because there was initially 15 of us that landed in Japan, and we were actually, oddly enough, the first foreign armed civilians in Japan since World War II.
So you guys had guns, you had weapons.
When we were at the specific facility, we did. We didn't carry them around in town. They were
not like an open carry thing. I mean, Japan's a pretty peaceful place.
Yeah, but it was, there was an armory. They went into the armory, and they never saw the light of day otherwise. I mean, the reality is, too, even though we were under a status of forces agreement internally, none of us ever wanted to fire it because we still weren't sure that the status of forces agreement would be upheld if we ever had to. But they were there. But there were 15 of us initially to do kind of the forward setup for the rest of us, and then another 50 or 60 people showed up for handling all the day-to-day, which is about the time when I started transitioning out. But even out of those first 15, there were places that me and these other two guys were able to go within that prefect that the rest of them weren't, because they were still playing a bit isolationist. And that kind of brings up the other thing that Americans, we have a tendency to do, is we tend to believe in universalism.
Right.
our beliefs, our structures, our moral judgments on things are universally correct.
But that's the construct, man. Like, I can't talk about that enough, dude. Like, everybody they're in their bubble, like, there's so few Americans that even have their passport. Right.
Well, yeah,
and then of that small percentage, it's like 20, maybe 30% at this point because of the Mexico-Canada stuff. You need it, but even of the people that have a passport, there's a very small percentage of Americans that actually travel outside of the quote-unquote safe places. Talking Mexico, Canada, the Caribbean, Western Europe. Yeah. Right. So a lot of Americans, and I love America, right? I mean, we both served, right? That sort of thing. But a lot of Americans think that America is the be-all, end-all, and there's nothing else outside of it.
Well, and it happens, and I've got...
Of course. And you get that in other countries, too, but like...
Yeah, of course, but at the same time, I mean, the French, are, particularly the Parisians, are very interesting about this, right? They talk about American universalism and American superiority and all of that, but then... I've spoke French most of my life. These days, it is rusty as all get out. Mm-hmm. But the Parisians, you try most other cultures. Like, I go to Kenya, and my Swahili is also equally terrible anymore.
But I mean, the fact that you just even mentioning that you have Swahili,
and it's words, and you speak with them, and you use their words and stuff. Right. And even if you butcher it a little bit, there's this there's this behavior where they like it.
They're supportive of it.
They're supportive, and they want you to help you. The Parisians, when you start speaking French, and if it's too terrible that offends their poor ears, they basically straight up will tell you, "I speak English. Stop butchering my language." Which is an interesting dissonance in their behavior, right? Mm-hmm. Accept the world for who they are. Be more, don't be American, but come to my country and don't speak my language because you suck at it, right?
Mm-hmm. Quebec is like that too.
Yeah, it's very interesting in these things. But like I said, we have a tendency as Americans, we believe in a lot of universalism when it comes to things. We are universally correct in this. We are morally universally correct. And that universalism, is there a red line within the morality that we generally accept as a society that makes us a cohesive society? Sure. But at the same time, we allow that universalism to limit us in our interactions with other people.
Absolutely.
And when we limit them, we end up missing things. A case in point was I was talking with another gentleman on one of his podcasts. Shout out to Matt Ward and the Disruptors. But
shout out.
Yeah, we were talking about this when it comes to Saudi Arabia and allies and moral allies versus incentive allies. And the idea is that, yes, there are some moral grounds that Saudi Arabia and the United States fundamentally disagree with. But does that mean that acting out of universalism, that we have this hard red line on that universal morality thing, that if they don't believe in our morality and our thing, that means that we should completely write them off as not having value as an ally at all? Right. And I think that general notion, even though that's the extreme case in allies and wars, we go to other countries even as tourists, and that universalism ends up kind of ruling how we go see the culture. Yeah. You go to Ireland, and then you see everything based on that lens of universalism in the United States. Well, they don't do this. Their hotels aren't set up like this. I'm not enjoying myself because the food isn't what I'm.
Imagine going to China and being a steak and potatoes person.
You're gonna, if you can find it, you're gonna go broke.
Not just that, but the steaks there are shit, dude.
Well, yeah,
they're thin and they're overcooked.
Or if you can find a good one, I mean, they're gonna charge you an astronomical price for it. I mean, it's one of those things. Mm-hmm. I mean, South Africa is even the same way, right? Yeah. I was in South Africa in Johannesburg in 2017, and you go to Mandela Square, which is this gorgeous mall, which, by the way, the United States doesn't know how to do malls, right? Yeah. South Africa knows how to do some malls. Mm. They're these gorgeous, they are the places to go. You got your shopping, your fine dining, your everything that's kind of those cool things are all done at these shopping malls. But so we're at Mandela Square, and there's these awesome restaurants. There's this little Thai place that's upstairs, has a great view of the courtyard, and they serve this dish that they called the Angry Duck. delicious, right? But it definitely made your stomach a little angry because of how spicy it was. But phenomenal. But then right down in there, there's the Trump Steakhouse, not actually related to the Trump family at all. In 2017, it was right during that whole thing with Trump going on, and it just happened. But the steak, it wasn't from what you're used to in the United States, but that didn't mean that it wasn't good, because you take it for what it is rather than that universal belief of what it should be.
It's kind of like speaking of food and meats, it kind of reminds me of like bacon. Like American bacon, cured. It's kind of sweet and salty. And stuff like, oh my God, dude, I could have killed for American bacon when I was in Asia, dude. Because it's not, you can't get it there.
No.
You can't get it. It's like borderline just ham. It's like ham strips. Like you can't.
It's not even Canadian bacon.
No, it's not. Like you can't get it crispy. Like you heat it up, but it doesn't like burn. It doesn't get crispy. It's just like floppy.
It's just it's just limp.
Just like warm ham.
Yeah.
Uncured. There's no honey, no hickory smoke, none of it, dude. Oh
no, it's not even
great. Like the first thing I did when I got back to the States, I'm like, bacon.
Yeah, you're lucky if you get brined if that ham is brined in Asia. Yeah, and then and I mean, well, even the Brits, they do that kind of thing a little bit different.
Yeah.
Breakfast food to the Brits. I mean, haggis.
Full English.
Haggis?
Haggis,
come
dude.
on.
Haggis is legit, though, dude.
Well, I mean, it can be.
I mean, if you hear the description and you know actually what it is, like some people are like, they don't have the stomach for it, but like, if you fucking try it.
Or blood sausage, too. Most people are, But again, for most people, they're like, I don't even know how to do this. And that's kind of blood.
Haggis is sheep's stomach? What?
Yeah.
How can I possibly eat deep fried sheep stomach?
Yeah, and I mean, that's the thing.
There's a reason there's a dish for it.
You miss out on so much. And that's one thing. I mean, another good story that you miss out if you just don't is in Kenya. I go to Nairobi from time to time, and they have this huge swap meet style, just acres of swap meet style market. It's called the market at Gikomba. And I go there by myself. And I stand out like a sore thumb. Trust me, like a sore thumb. I am a 6-foot white dude with a bald head that's got a ginger beard.
And a ginger face.
And so, yes, there are some tall Kenyan tribes, but for the most part in Nairobi, that's not predominantly populated by those tribes. It's predominantly from some of the tribes that have... they're still tall compared to some, but for me, they're still a little shorter. So I'm easily a head taller than most people. So you can see me for miles away in this market because it's pretty much locals.
Yeah.
But you can go and you can find the stuff that were the Nikes that were made in China, shipped to the United States, didn't sell, went to Home Goods or
the championship shirts for the teams that lost,
or you go and they're the Air Jordans that didn't sell at TJ Maxx either, and then they end up making their way in the global economy to these markets in just huge bags in Nairobi. So occasionally I can find some cool stuff that my kid might like, or might be a good gift for someone that are inexpensive, and I'm there, and so I go. And even the what they call in Kenya the Kenyan cowboys, which are the native-born Kenyans that are Caucasian, so their family migrated from Europe years and years ago during part of the colonial, whether they're British or Dutch or whatever else, but they're natural-born Kenyan citizens for generations at this point. But they're getting fewer and fewer of them. But they're called the Kenyan cowboys, and they're like, well, even they who are local to Nairobi are like, what are you doing? That's just crazy. I'm like, what do you mean? You get robbed.
How cowboy are they, though? Are they wearing like cowboy hats and like...
No, I mean, they're wearing...
chaps and stuff like that? Because that's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking they're walking around with...
No, they're wearing safari clothes.
And shit.
Safari clothes, or they're wearing, jeans and T-shirts just like anyone else. But, I mean, they think I'm crazy for going to this market. And I'm like, why? Well, you might get robbed. Well, two things. One, I stand out like a sore thumb. So the Maasai, which is one of the tribes in Kenya that can actually carry weapons, they carry these billy clubs, and they kind of enforce the peace there. One, they know I'm there because it's not like they don't see me.
Right.
It's not like they can't find me. And two, I mean, yeah, I might
You're
get
a
a
trained
guy.
killer.
Well, they might try to pickpocket me. Big deal.
Yeah.
So you know what I do? I don't put my money where I can get pickpocketed.
Exactly.
I mean, it's that simple. And then I go talk to people, and I'm polite to the people that are there, and I interact with them, and I buy things.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
you know, it creates this thing where people. You get what you give, right?
Exactly,
and so
man.
if you go with
So
an
true.
ad, and I say this to some people that, to some friends that were from New Mexico, right?
Yeah.
When they first came up to Seattle, they're like, I can't believe the attitude of the people here because they're so much politer than what we were told by some of our friends. And again, I'm kind of disparaging on New Mexico here, but when I first moved there from here, the people that I met there had really bad attitudes about everything.
In New Mexico.
Yeah, they cut you off. They stand in the way and talk. You say excuse me, they ignore you.
Oh, yeah.
I had
Sounds like China.
I had a guy that we were there for like 4 hours and we're in a double turn lane, and as we're turning, this guy drifts over the turn line and nearly runs into me. I tap my horn once. Nothing super aggressive, just, hey, I'm right here. He speeds up the road like 150 yards, pulls his car sideways in the middle of the road to try to block the road like he wants to pick a fight. I'm like, I can't believe
Good
it.
Lord.
And so his friend, if they came to this town with that attitude, you get what you give, right?
Exactly, man.
And so he came. He's super friendly to people. He's wearing a New England Patriots hat because he's a New England Patriots fan. He's finding people all over, I mean, the middle of the 12s town, you know, the 12th man town, and he's finding people who are like, hey, man, like your hat, and let's talk Patriots. And he's like, I didn't expect this. I expected something different. And that's because...
Well, you go to Boston with like a Yankees hat or something, dude, they will shit on you
well, exactly.
all over the place.
And so you get what you give a lot of times, right? And whether it's Kenya, Namibia, Afghanistan, you know, you get what you give. I still have friends from the days back in Afghanistan, 04, 05. A couple of them are here now. We brought them here.
Nice.
Which is another atrocity in and of itself. Not that we brought them here, but how we treated them after we brought them here. But that's a story for another day. But, you know, I've got friends that in Kenya still that I keep in touch with. And one of the guys that I always employ to help me out, he's coastal Arab, which means he's Muslim. And he and I have some differing opinions on things, but the things that you learn when you talk to people. So the coastal Arabs in Kenya are a bit more laid back. He's married to a Yemeni girl who's very conservative in terms of that. So she still actually wears more...
Does the burqa and all that?
She doesn't go full burqa face, you know, so not the full outfit, but...
The hijab?
The hijab at least. It doesn't necessarily cover the face.
Yep.
Then goes all the way down to the ankles. And one time... And I won't get him in any trouble because I won't mention his name. But we're driving and we're chatting and we're talking about these things. And he's like, I don't want her to wear these things. He's like, she's super sexy. Yeah, she's like, she's super sexy. I like to see her. He's like, and then of course because I don't get to see it all the time, and her ankle shows, and it actually gets like exciting.
You're like, girl, you got the hottest ankle.
Yeah, I mean, he's making these jokes But if you believe in that universalism thing, that it would be fundamentally impossible for me and this Arab Muslim kid to have these kinds of conversations because, you know, we don't know how to do it. But that's what I do. I get to a town and I talk to people. That's how
what you
I
gotta
do Africa.
man.
Yeah.
You know, like nothing's black and white, dude. You can't just say, oh, they're Muslim, they're terrorist, or what, or judge them based on the clothes that they wear, or whatever else. Like, you get to know these people, and they're just as fucking funny as the next person, right? Like,
yeah, sure.
If they're making these ankle jokes or whatever, like, you get to know people and level with them. You know, sure, you may have a difference of certain opinions or beliefs or whatever else, but that's what makes stuff cool. Like, that's what makes the interesting, you know, the conversations and all that shit. You know?
But then at the same time too, the other side of that coin is you can't always fault people for at least being a little suspicious at first, right?
Oh, sure.
You know, but we do as Americans, again. People don't align with us, and so we get mad at you for being suspicious.
Exactly.
Human brains are nothing more... I mean, there's a reason our computers work the way that they do, the way that we have file storage, and the way that we correlate files to names and those folders, and how everything comes down to a certain thing. It's because we program computers based on the way that our own brain thinks. So information is correlated at first for a reason, and then you modify that correlation as you get more data. It's like this thing that's going on in today's world where we're now going back and we're second guessing everything from the Peanuts cartoons to what a politician said in 1950.
Or like these yearbooks that go back like 30, 40 years. Or whatever,
and again, yes, are there things that people said that are under today's lens bad? Or even back then, were they not treating people the way that they should have been treated? Yes. But you can't...
You also have to allow for people to learn and grow.
Well, exactly. And humans like computers, like machine learning, right? How do we train our machines to learn? We give them data. Because that's what humans do. We learn by data. So humans, we make the best decision we can at the time we did it with the data that we had on hand. It's no different than, without it being related to politics or people, people made bad decisions in their careers, right? But they thought it was the best decision at the time with the data they had,
or it was a decision. Like sometimes
and it was
you just say stupid shit, and it's just not. You don't think it's going to go anywhere, and it's not trying to be like insulting to anybody, just bullshitting, right?
Well, yeah, you say something, and at the time and the data, it didn't seem, and then in retrospect, you're like, okay, maybe I shouldn't, or maybe I.
We have an expression for that. Well, yeah, sticking your foot in your mouth, right?
Well, yeah, and also there's also a reason that they say that hindsight is 20/20, right? You have more data at that point. Oh,
exactly.
Had I known where things would have been with this decision or this variable, I might have made a slightly different decision. But guess what? You didn't have that variable at the time. You were making decisions based on that. So we have to be careful that we allow ourselves the ability to learn, and then we also allow people to learn. We don't hold them to this expectation that from 30 years ago, you were this person, and we're holding you to that person now, because that gives you no incentive to learn.
Right.
And we want people to be learning.
Well, and
I learn.
People should be learning and growing and evolving every day, right? Like every single person's unique. We're a collection of our own moments, our experiences, and how we respond to those things, right? And every day you've got a new set of those that you add to who you are. Yeah. So whereas you may have been this person in Japan so many years ago.
I was a legend in Japan. I don't know what you're talking about.
I want to hear this, but I want to hear about your legendary story. But I want to hear that shit. But what I'm saying is, like, that's still a part of you, right?
Yeah, of course.
But who you are today is, it probably has shifted a little bit.
Oh, it does. And if you don't shift, if you're the same person today that you were 30 years ago,
you're not living, bro.
Yeah, you're missing out on so much to do with life. I mean. I've been a lot of things in my day. I mean, I'm a bit of a, and again, not to be disparaging to people who might think so, but I'm a bit of a gypsy in that I've done a little bit of a lot of things, and I always just adapt and I change, and it's a bit of a hustle, and it's also a skill that I think that not enough people have is. We define ourselves by certain things, and then we end up missing out on so many.
So much, man.
I mean. I never, for the life of me, would have expected I'd be carrying a parade float down the middle of a street in Wayne, North Japan, which is how I became a legend.
Hold on a second. Hold on. You just fucking brushed right through that thing. I want to hear, like, what are you talking about? Like, explain this to me.
So again, we're in Goshaguar, and we made friends with this family, me and Caleb and David, and we went to the barbecue and all that stuff. Well, also, in the bar districts in Japan at night, they've got juveniles, younger. I don't know how old they are because it's really hard to tell when the Japanese culture is younger.
Asians don't age very much.
Yeah, it's basically they're 25 until they're 85.
Until they're 80, right?
Exactly. And again,
but they know it too.
Well, yeah, of course they do. And that's, again, some people might say, "Oh, that's being racist." No, that's not. That's commenting on what actually happens and recognizing the humor in it, right?
Exactly.
I mean, they do. They're 25 until they're 80. Yeah. So this kid could have been 17. He could have been 24. I have no way of knowing. But his name was Yuki. He was one of the kids that was basically paid to kind of make sure that, that politeness and that saving face happened. You don't be overly drunk in public. You don't get into fights in public. And so they had these kids whose job was to get you off the street. So Yuki was one of these guys. And he was a heavier set Japanese guy, very jovial, laughing all the time, nice, yep. And just had a smile on his face all of the time. And I've got a good picture that like memorializes that behavior of him as a person. It was a perfect photo. So anyway, we get invited down to the street parade by the family that runs the drinking bar, and we're just sitting there on the street, just the three of us with the Japanese family and
three
people.
Gaijin or foreigners.
Three foreigners.
Yeah,
I mean, there's others.
Foreigners.
Yeah, there's others of the group that are there because it's not far from the hotel.
Yep.
But there's three of us sitting with. Actually, it was four of us. Our SF medic doc was with us.
Cool.
And we were just sitting there, all enjoying it, watching them. And in Japan, at least way North Japan, they still carry their parade floats. Big long.
Carry them.
Yeah,
Wait.
so they're on. So basically, think of the old school way.
So they're not being pulled by like a truck or something.
No,
and it's not the balloon.
No, this is like. Think of it when you see, if you've ever seen any of the old movies or whatever, where the emperor is being carried in
with like a bamboo stick or something.
They're
like
carried
a throne with a bamboo stick,
or like a really big tree log or whatever.
Okay,
basically, you have these tree logs that are strung, and then you have the float itself, whatever it's designed in, the dragon or whatever. This one that had these huge drums and people were banging it, are set in the center, and then of course, depending on how heavy they are, will depend on how many of the Japanese people are actually carrying it. It can be a couple few, it can be quite a lot of them. Mm-hmm. And that traditionally the people carrying are wearing a white outfit that sort of looks like a kimono, and they carry it. And so anyway, and then they carry it for so long, and then they set it down because it gets heavy, and they've got somebody's running along with these little what looks like jacks that then they set the logs on, and it holds it there, and then a little bit of a performance, and then it's however long, and then you pick up, move, and it. So a parade of a few miles takes a lot longer than in the U.S. because we're not just towing them behind a F-250 or whatever.
Right.
But
shout out to Ford.
Yeah, shout out to Ford. Hopefully they'll give you an endorsement here.
There we go. Let's make it happen.
Of course, I used F-250 when my dad worked for General Motors. He's going to be mad if he hears this. But, Dad, GM too. I own a GM, so there we go. GM. Shout out to GM.
I'm a Michigan boy. Shout out to the big three.
Yeah, so we'll just we'll make them all equal so none of them can be mad or require you to pay a royalty or some stupid crap. But anyway.
I'll just bleep it out if I have to. I don't care. Shout out to...
Yeah. You get a cease and desist letter. Stop using our name. So anyway, Yuki's float comes, and of course we can see him coming for miles just because he's got his personality is just enormous. And so he sees us, and then he insists that we come out there, and we're of course trying to say no, it's fine. But Yuki's he's so contagious that we just get up and decide to come out there and hang out with him.
Yeah.
And before we know it, he's convincing us to start carrying this parade float with us.
That's great.
And of course it looks hilarious because it's just, at this point, it's me, Caleb, and David. And Caleb and David are about the same height, which I'm...
like 6 foot or so.
No, they're not even that. They're like 5'6", 5'7".
Okay.
So for me...
So you're towering over them.
Yeah, so I'm towering over them, and they're closer... They're closer to the height of the Japanese men that are carrying this parade float. So for me, they put me in the front, and it's this ridiculous thing, so I'm either standing fully upright...
Yep.
And carrying more of the weight that way, or I'm kind of squatting, holding it with my hands so that I'm not having to carry as much of the weight.
Yeah, so that reminds me of like in boot camp in the Marines, like we do these log exercises, right? And like so it's a freaking telephone pole, right?
Yeah,
like
exactly.
It's literally a telephone pole, and you got like 10 or 20 guys or whatever.
The tall guys get screwed,
and whoever's the tall one gets screwed always because because they're either like crouching and it's uncomfortable that way, or
they're carrying more of the weight because they're standing straight
else.
up. Yep.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's kind of that, and I'm probably exaggerating because I lost track because it was mid-afternoon when we started, and then it got dark by the time we got to the little drop-off point.
Right.
But I swear it must have been like 3.5, 4 miles that we carried this thing.
Wow.
Stopping every so often doing the dance. But it ended up because that part of Japan hadn't seen a lot of foreigners to begin with, to then have 3 white dudes, pasty ass white dudes. I mean, I'm talking pasty ass. I'm talking pasty, so pasty to the point where, with my team all the guys called me Red.
Renzo, he spends like 5 minutes on the beach and he's burnt.
Well, yeah, it doesn't even need to be 5 minutes. I need SPF 5000 to go out in the sun. The reason I'm saying pasty is because my buddy Caleb, I'm already pasty enough to where they call me Red. This dude, we called him UV for ultraviolet. And how this story came was before we deployed to Japan, we're at training in Moyock, North Carolina, which is where Blackwater headquarters were. And the weekend before we're supposed to actually leave to Japan, we go out to hit the bars and stuff in Norfolk, which is the closest kind of bar town, which that's a Navy town as well. So
Virginia
they've got
or North Carolina?
In Virginia. Okay. So it's Norfolk. So technically Moyock, North Carolina is right across the border from Virginia. So Virginia Beach, Norfolk, all right there. So we go out into that area to go to the bars because that's where all the Navy guys go. Yeah. And one thing about Navy guys is we can always find the best places to find dates, food, and drinks in any country that we're in.
Those are the things.
Whatever you're into when it comes to those, we somehow like have a nose for it.
There we go.
Like a bloodhound, we can smell it out. So we go out and we go to this club, and Caleb's a shorter dude, and we can't really see him out on the dance floor. And there's 3 of us, and all of us have a nickname by this point, but Caleb doesn't. And all of a sudden we're like, there he is, and we see this dude, and I wish you could see, if there was a camera here, I wish you could see me reenact this because it was the funniest thing. But you see these shoulders of people kind of moving with the music, and then all of a sudden you see these 2 fists like pump up in the air above the shoulders, and then you see this like glowing white head from the black light pop up between the shoulders and then disappear. And he's moving between the crowds, almost like a fishing bobber on a wave in a lake. When you see the ripples in the lake, and you can see the bobber, and then it ducks down between the ripple, and then it pops back up. And so he is so white and so nearly see-through that the black light makes his entire body glow. And he's probably going to be so embarrassed. Yeah.
UV.
He just moved back to Washington not that long ago, so there's a good chance he's going to hear this story. And his wife, who probably has never really heard this story done justice.
Makes sense.
Yeah, either that or she's going to be like, she's heard all these stories and now she hears one from one of the other guys, right?
That's funny.
So anyway, but yeah, so that's why I'm saying pasty. So we stand out in this crowd in Japan, right? And so here we are carrying it. It becomes national news. We're down in Tokyo one night because we're getting ready to go climb Mount Fuji, which is another amazing thing that you need to do.
Wait, so it's national news, like what? Because of the parade, or because there were these gaijin pasty white foreigners partaking?
So the parade itself probably was there was already news crews there, but then the story became 2 things, right? So at the time, and it's well publicized now at this point, but the U.S. government was putting a over-the-horizon radar in North Japan as part of a project with the Missile Defense Agency, and we've got a couple of others. And it's called the X-band radar. And the Japanese, they call it X-band-O, and that's because there wasn't really a name for it.
It's the phonetic.
Yeah, X-band-O radar. And so the story was, and I assume, because again, my Japanese is only enough to say hello, thank you, very nice things, and the way the Japanese language is as well, there is a masculine version of the language and there's a feminine version.
Well, there's also like 4 levels depending on formality and stuff.
Well, it's like 5 or 6 separate languages. But if you learn to speak from a woman, they can tell, a native speaker can tell, or if you learn to speak as a man, you can tell. And men culturally learn to speak from men and women from women. I learned how to speak from a girl, go figure.
Yeah,
so there's word. Yeah. So there's word choices that I would use, but there was things that I just didn't recognize. But then all of a sudden I'm in Tokyo, we're hanging out with some people for dinner and because we're doing Mount Fuji the next day. And all I hear is Expando radar and Gaijing. That's the only thing that really made out. And I look up and there's a little short video clip of the three of us carrying it. And then I assume that they're also mentioning that it's these three Gaijin foreigners that are part of the Expando radar program. I'm assuming that's why they were related and then showing this. But in either case, that's the story about how me and two other guys became a legend in Japan way back in the day in like 05, 06. But
Nice covert operation, buddy.
yeah. Well, I mean, it wasn't supposed to be covert.
I guess so.
I mean, that specifically wasn't supposed to be covert.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
all of the I mean, there's no way to hide,
there's no way you're
100 white dudes in Wayne, North Japan that are carrying guns that work for a contractor. You can't hide that. I mean, that's like
funny.
I mean that's like trying to go into the middle of a in the middle of a barn of hay and dried out hay, and then putting like a Coca-Cola on the top of it, and then not be saying, hey, the Coca-Cola, I can't find it. It's the only thing that looks like it. It's not super hard to. So yeah. I mean, but when we first got there, before everyone else, we were telling people that we were baseball scouts.
Oh, that's funny.
Because at first we just didn't want. We were told to kind of keep as low of a profile as possible.
Yeah.
Until such a point. But I mean, they kind of knew we were coming anyway. It's almost like the Japanese government must have told people, because we'd get the questions and we're like, Expando radar? No, we're baseball scouts. No idea what you're talking about. I'm sure they knew we were lying, but they played along because they're polite.
Yeah, that's funny.
But yeah, it was good times. But that's the story of how we became a legend in Japan.
Nice, man. It's always good to be a legend places.
Be good to be a legend here in the United States, but I'm not important enough for that.
Well, you're working on it. I mean,
Or wait, is that self-aggrandizing to say I'd like to be a legend in the United States?
dude, everyone should aspire.
Is that
Come
allowed,
on, bro?
But I mean, is that
I
allowed?
think it's perfectly fine. I'm not hating.
But I mean, I want to be known for changing how we grow food and how we have our relationship with food. But I
want to hear a little bit about that though. Like, I mean, it sounds like based on your travels and diving deep into the food and cultures and stuff like that. Like you probably have a pretty broad array of interests in different types of foods, right?
Yeah, I've become one of those spoiled people. So,
same.
The world works in an interesting place, right? So we grew up and everything was local to what we could get in our own resources, and we started out very nomadic in our history because we'd moved to where resources were. Yep. Then we learned how to cultivate stuff, but we were still limited on what we had available because only certain things grew in certain places. Then the world became more open as the result of trade and all of this stuff. And we've become so used to that selection in our food, right? We get asparagus out of season. We get avocados out of season for our local environments.
God, I've got
and because of my travels, I've become so used to that. I mean, growing up in the Seattle area, I got spoiled with seafood. So when I got to New Mexico, I basically avoided it because, trust me, seafood in the desert that's landlocked like New Mexico.
Same with Vegas, dude.
I mean, there was like one. I mean, but in Vegas, the same. In New Mexico, they had one or two places that paid the money to fly it in
they would
fresh.
ship it in every day, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and
sure.
but of course you
it's
pay
few and far
for it.
between, and you got to find it and you pay for it.
Yeah, and you pay for it, which of course then is we're talking about sustainability in life, right? That isn't super environmentally friendly to spend that kind of greenhouse gases on flying in your seafood fresh. So that becomes a conundrum, right? We're trying to be better stewards of our planets, and that's kind of how I feel about environmentalism. Is we're stewards, not masters, and we're supposed to take care of it for the next generation on some level. Does that mean that I'm perfect? Fuck no. I make bad decisions just like everybody else does. Some mornings I forget to bring my reusable coffee mug to the coffee store, and you can't really recycle it because of the plastic liner or the wax liner or whatever. But what I'm saying when it comes to this in food is I love my selection, but I also kind of want to be part of the solution in terms of that. But how do we reconcile both? And that was one of two reasons that catalyzed my shift into agriculture, and the other was chasing narcotics and bad counter-narcotics policy in Afghanistan when I was at Blackwater. And so that kind of really started in this, how do we do two things? How do we provide a way for the Afghan farmers to make a living with something that is a economic value crop that meets their thing.
Versus what?
Okay, so
the opium fields?
Well, yeah, so let's dive down. So let's take a little tangent here. So for those listening, remember we're talking about that sustainability in agriculture and that shift between two things, but then let's dive down the tangent on one of the catalysts for this, and that was when I was in Afghanistan. So we were part of the counter-narcotics mission, and there were three basic arms to counter-narcotics that the U.S. and ISAF forces were taking. There was counter-poppy eradication. So that means that we were eradicating the poppy crop.
The opium poppy, which they use to create opium and heroin and
particulate,
all that stuff.
And all of that. And technically, I mean, that even is where your, that's opium, which is an opiate. So that's even where your hydrocodone, your oxycodone and stuff.
All of it. Opioids.
Yeah, any of your opioids are still
opium poppies.
Yes, but there's legal restrictions. So
sure.
But in Afghanistan, it's the largest producer of opium poppy in the world, and for illicit purposes primarily. But the farmers there, they don't grow it because they're wanting to be part of the illicit drug trade. They're not. It's not like the coca
drug.
No, it's not.
Manufacturers.
It's not like some of the coca fields in Colombia or whatever that are owned by the cartel, that were set up by the cartel. No, these are farmers that have this land that pretty much doesn't grow much more that makes money. There's a couple of reasons. That some of that is environmental. Afghanistan is a high desert, just like New Mexico. So you New Mexicans know what I'm talking about. Nothing fucking grows there.
Yep. It's also very mountainous and rocky, right?
Very mountainous in places and rocky. And then the other thing is that traditional knowledge base, because some related to the way the Taliban kept information from them, there were, human defecation on their crop fields and stuff make it to where it's not really safe for consumption. And so they, and again, to kind of bring it down to where everybody knows what we're talking about. We're talking about straight up shitting on the fields that you then grow your food on. That's what I mean by human defecation, just in case. Some people confuse the word with vomit. I just want to make sure that
fields.
Yeah, literally there's some shitty fields. And it's from a lack of education. It's fine. It's a good one, but it's a lack of education, right? So they grow it doesn't matter, right? All of that doesn't matter because the opium is processed with hydrochloric acid and sulfur and all these things that doesn't matter. It kills everything. So they grew this crop, and then they didn't have to worry about finding a market for it, right? Because the illicit part of the value chain, so the drug dealers out of Russia or China, they would come in and bring everything else, where these farmers just grow it, harvest it, and then they don't have to do anything else. Somebody else comes in. They have the scientists to refine it. They have the distribution channel to take care of it. Everything they've got, no problem, lock, stock.
So basically, they're just growing a crop.
Yeah, they're just growing the crop that makes them the money. So
our one part to survive and make a living, just like anybody else.
Exactly. There was no evil intent or anything else.
We're not talking about El Chapo here.
No, they're just growing what made them money. Right. So then the U.S. government, we think that we need to eradicate it. So then we fly in and we burn it to the ground. Which then, of course,
awesome.
Well, yeah, and then we figure it out later that this isn't really good for hearts and minds, or really, we're creating two more problems rather than by trying to solve one problem.
Kind of like trying to, like if you got a leaky ship, you're trying to like patch it with gum or some shit, but then you find two more spots.
Yeah, it's that, or it's chasing problems, and we have a problem with as humans sometimes. To solve a problem, we create bigger problems.
Yeah.
So then we figure we can't do that, so we start paying them to grow grains. Grow
what?
Grains, like wheats and cereal grains.
Sorry, I heard something different. I was like, what the hell are you talking about?
Wheats and cereal grains and stuff. But the problem is because of those farming practices, there's no one to sell it to. So now we're running that risk of sending them back because now they're not, okay, we were paying them a subsidy, but it wasn't enough to really supplement all their income just to grow. Part of their income was supposed to come from selling what was being grown. Nobody wanted to buy it. So now what are we? We're stuck in this cycle that we created. So now we're buying it, and then we can't get rid of it because no one will buy it because of food safety issues. So we're burning it again. So either way, we're burning down crops to the tune of multi-million dollars a year. And so that's kind of what got me thinking, how do we sustainably allow for people to grow things that are differently and things that can make them money that may not be indigenous to that area, but do it in a way that's sustainable and creates them an economic viability.
Right.
So that kind of catalyzed the idea for what I'm doing now. And then also that my own desire when I was in New Mexico and I couldn't get a lemon from the grocery store, or I couldn't get, because New Mexico is more food insecure than some African countries, believe it or not, because of the way the logistics system works. I want a head of lettuce and it's pretty much bad, or a tomato and it's pretty much bad. And I'm like, I want these selections, I want these food choices, but it's, how am I going to do this sustainably? And so that's kind of what catalyzed even farther me finally jumping into it with Revolution Agriculture, is to really fundamentally change our relationship with agriculture from that monocropped chemical agriculture, just grow tons of it and everything else will sort itself out later, strip the soil. And that's kind of like what we're doing now, is chasing how do we really grow anything anywhere, but then also do it in such a way that we're growing as close to the consumer as possible. Well, our goal is to bring the production of every crop within 10 miles of where it's being consumed. So it's a global solution by taking a hyper-local approach. And then these things can be used in places like Afghanistan to create economic opportunity, because now we're growing crops that people want to buy in a system that also, by its own design, negates even the ability to defecate on it and to fall back into bad practices. You can't do it. So to be an example of falling back into bad practices, USAID found 15 farms in Afghanistan, spent $1 million a piece to completely rehabilitate and then grow stuff. And then the U.S. embassies and military were buying the crops. But then as the situation kind of deteriorated and USAID wasn't going out and visiting the farms as much, the old habits started getting back in. And then when we're
in the fields
and that and other letting their animals that weren't, they weren't doing it properly. And so then food safety tests were coming in and it wasn't meeting the threshold for being able to be served to the U.S. forces. So then we just threw $15 million down the drain to rehab these farms. So the design of our systems in and of itself completely negates that problem. So that's kind of one of those two-part solutions, right? Now we can grow anything anywhere with our system. So it can be right in the middle of town or right in the middle of Kabul, Afghanistan.
Like, how much space do you need? Like, because I'm thinking, like, okay, if I'm a restaurant, for example, I go through a lot of product.
Yeah.
Right. I think Chipotle, like one Chipotle restaurant, for example, could go through like 500 pounds of chicken a week, for example.
Yeah.
And so that's just a portion of it. But like, the other ingredients, like the rice or whatever else, the tomatoes, jalapenos, that sort of thing. I mean, they go through a lot of stuff. So like, how big or small are these things, and how big or small do they have to be
at the smallest,
to be effective at these?
Yeah, so the smallest size that we target is 80 square feet. Okay. And then
so a little bit smaller than your hotel in Japan.
Yeah, a little bit smaller. Not much smaller. That's actually about the size of my room in Iraq. Actually, yeah. And then we want, about to 320 square feet. Our growing system could actually take over larger spaces, but it's not needed. And the reason that that's important is because urban environment space is a premium, becomes super expensive. But there's a lot of space that's only 80 square feet, 320 square feet that no one's doing anything with. Walk down any of your urban city streets in downtown and just look at the fenced lots that have a bunch of garbage doing nothing.
Yeah.
So if we can take over those spaces, there's a lot of positive value there. We can even start reactivating areas of communities that have seen de-investment because they don't have access to anything. Now we're creating access to a good food source. So now we might be able to catalyze the reuse of land again and bring back investment. So we're talking about tackling a lot of problems from a food perspective. Unfortunately, some of the people that actually can invest don't see it that way. You're not a high-speed, low-drag lettuce farm, or why aren't you a this for that kind of guy? I just had a conversation a couple days ago about investors are going to look for you're the this guy.
Well, that's what they want.
Like I'm the Uber for X.
Yeah, they want the easy. It's the easy comparative, right?
Yeah, and that's treating
oversimplification.
Well, and that's treating a symptom, but that's also how you end up spending money on these businesses because it's laser focused. It sounds so scalable, but that's how you end up at IPO with an S1 that's got $900 million in losses on your S1 filing for an IPO, because you're burning through cash caring more about what that laser focus is than you're actually caring about the long-term viability of your solution, because you're tackling a problem, not a symptom of a problem. And we have our laser focus, right? We're going to start with the hyperlocal stuff, but for a restaurant like Chipotle, we might
Shout
need
out
to take
Chipotle.
Shout out to Chipotle. We might end up needing to take over a larger space in order to provide enough turnover. But when we're talking about having access to all of these small, I might not need one large space. I might just need 20 or 30 small spaces to be able to produce.
Well, I mean, I even think of like, I'm from the Midwest, right? I'm from Michigan. Like, I think of like how this could be implemented in a place like Detroit.
Yeah.
Flint, Saginaw, those cities that
those
have basically
places
been decimated since NAFTA happened, and the Big Three. Shout out to the Big Three again, but but they started outsourcing the work to Mexico, right?
Well, yeah, and I mean it's
their economy could definitely use something like that.
Well, yeah, and I mean, a good example, like I said too, is it could be used in Kabul. The U.S. military imports so much, and it's so complicated to import. So we can bring these agricultural systems to these communities, and we can also start changing how even our transportation and logistics are. In town here in Seattle, one of the things that they worry about is the first and last mile, where these produce trucks are just idling for hours upon hours during the day as they just circle the city to do their deliveries, because they bring them in one big truck, and then because of how dense the traffic is, they do one delivery, then they have to go sit and idle in a place, and then they have to circle the city to come back to another delivery because they couldn't make that delivery at that time because they couldn't access it. If our systems are right next to these places already, we can have people on foot or electric bicycles or regular bicycles that can do the deliveries. And we're talking about changing everything about the way that we look at food, but people are, we resist these things because it sounds so crazy, but
I just sit there and I think about, like, how many times in your travels you've been like, oh, like this food there's nothing like having this food in this place.
Yeah.
Right? Like I was saying earlier with the sushi thing, for example, right? Like, after I went to Tokyo and had sushi there, I'm like, it ruined it for me everywhere. And like I just sit there and I think about, like,
well, doner kebabs is a good example. Turkish doner kebabs.
Yeah.
When I was in Istanbul, used to get them for so cheap from a little doner kebab stand.
Yep.
Germany's got a lot of them because they've got a large immigrant population of Turkish people, and it's become almost as German as it is originally Turkish.
Yep.
And I got here and I'm like, I want one so bad.
You can't find it.
Well, luckily enough, there is a stand right on Pike, at the end of Pike Place Market. It says Turkish Delight above it. She's been here for years. Turkish lady. She's even got her daughter working in there now. She doesn't take credit cards, take cash, people. But I love her. I finally found it. But that's the thing is, you can't always get to those places, right?
Right.
And so having access to these things, like a friend of mine from high school, she married a Navy guy, and then they were in Guam for a few years. There are things from Guam that she misses that it's so difficult to get, even when you go to those more Chinatown, Asia town markets that do import these things. But even then, you run the risk of them not being any good anymore. You
can't get the stuff at the same quality or the same availability, like outside of where it comes from.
Yeah.
Whether that's Chinese food here, whether that's Western food, and like China, for example. I mean, I'm using that as my example, but like you go to like there was this Mexican restaurant and bar that I used to go to in Beijing. Shout out to QMex. But it was good for drinking, but like it was probably some of the best Mexican food in Beijing, but it was shit Mexican food, dude. Well, let's be honest.
I mean, New Mexico is the same way, right?
Yeah.
So I grew up in Washington, where most of the Mexican food you can find is from like Jalisco. And I became very partial to it. I got to New Mexico thinking that, okay, I should be able to get good Mexican food. I thought it was all terrible. It was all absolutely terrible. And I'm not saying it's a bad thing. In New Mexico, yeah. So weird. It's because it's a cross between native New Mexican cuisine and more Chihuahua Mexico. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with those cuisines in and of themselves. But when you were thinking of going for like a Jalisco Mexico, they just don't do it. And they just don't do the thing for you.
Yeah.
So
I couldn't see if it was still recording.
Yeah, it looks like it is. So
yeah, no,
it looks like we're good.
Yeah, I think
but
so.
So yeah, it was just one of those things. I just couldn't find it. Then I have to come back to Washington State of all places to get like good, proper, what I feel is proper Mexican food. Or when I was living after the Navy, I got out for a bit and I was living with my grandparents in Yuma, Arizona, and we used to go across the border to Alcodones, Mexico, all the time. And getting proper street tacos from one of those, those are what I missed.
That's my shit, dude.
Yeah, and they just didn't
a good street taco.
Yeah,
dude.
and they just didn't have them in New Mexico, and it was all this stuff where I just didn't understand. But so that's part of what we're doing is you have something. We bring the ability to grow these crops closer, so you get both the selection, but then you can also make that sustainable choice. So we're giving people that combination, because the other problem too that we're having
also
is
reducing the carbon footprint too, right?
Well, exactly, which is important because whatever you believe politically, climate change is happening on some degree. You can see it in the shift in the coffee belt. We're seeing where that coffee belt is, which is traditionally between the tropics of Cancer and Capricorn, on a very specific set of geographic coordinates. That belt is shifting. And that means the climate's changing somehow for some reason. So ignore the political reasons from it. It's happening.
Whether it's man-made or just the planet or whatever.
Yeah, whether it's cyclical planet, whether it's man-made, whatever you believe it and do that. But it's happening. And so what that's creating is we're losing arable land each year. 29.7 million acres of arable land every single year. To put that in perspective for the people that know Washington, that's basically half the state of Washington by land size every single year.
Per year.
Wow. So that means that, and then if all we're doing is these high-speed, low-drag lettuce farms like all these VC investors want, and there's plenty of them out there, and truthfully, $1,000 and a trip down to an indoor garden shop, and anybody can set up one of these high-speed, low-drag lettuce farms, they're not that unique. No offense to you hydro guys that are probably getting really mad at me, but it's not that hard to do. Right. My 16-year-old kid with $500 could set one up. Problem is we're losing arable land, and then we're shifting to a monocrop solution from an indoor controlled environment agriculture system. We're pretty much heading to that scene in The Matrix when Neo gets woken up, and then he's spooning that goop, and Rabbit's response is that it's a synthetic amino that has all of the essential things that your body needs. We're heading that way, but with greens. So pretty soon,
it takes longer than my lifetime. Man,
well, yeah.
So I enjoy food too much.
But if we continue this path where we're saying that agriculture is going to be fine, the climate's going to be fine, and we're just going to do hydro lettuce, we're going to be drinking green lettuce smoothies for pretty quick. And we're trying to tackle both that. We use less water in our growing system, 60 to 90% less water. We're producing more food in the same square footage. We're producing it faster, but it's got selection. Our first crop was a French breakfast radish that tasted amazing. Nice. Then we did Ladris peas, and we've done carrots. And so we're actually trying to provide both of those things. That's selection and sustainability. But again, it takes money and effort and all that kind of stuff. And we're hoping that we can find the right group that says this is what we need. And that's what we're after, and that's what we're trying to build here. Our first commercial box is being built here in Washington State, but it's all out of our own money.
I got a buddy,
people keep telling us to crowdfund this stuff.
I got a buddy that's I went to high school with him. He got his PhD in agriculture. Dr. Pat, shout out Pat. He actually works. Who was it? It was like some big ag company.
It doesn't surprise me.
Pioneer or something like that. One of those, right? But he goes all over the world. He's like dealing with like genetics and stuff like that. I think he's in Germany quite a bit.
Yeah, that would make sense.
Yeah, but
that's where Bayer Monsanto is, and
yeah, sure. So I don't know who he works for or whatever, but he's in Minnesota. But a company like that could be something.
Yeah, or
that might get it and might have an interest, or
or they're gonna try to kill it because it goes after their core market. But some people have been telling us we need to crowdfund. The problem is I suck at social media. Don't tell anyone. I couldn't get 500 people to like a post to save my life, which means I couldn't get a viral campaign to crowdfund this for nothing. Now you put me in a room with people and I'm great, but really hard to get 5 million people to contribute $100 into a room without paying $5 million for a venue to get 5 million people. So kind of ends up being self-defeating at that point. But so that's some of the struggles we have, but that's what we're after to tackle. And we've got a cool team. My COO, he used to run manufacturing units for like Sherwin-Williams, RPM International. Cool. So we've got some manufacturing background. My chief development officer used to be a dude for Hyperloop TT. So
nice.
the super fast transportation, but he's also a medal-winning medical cannabis grower out of California.
No shit.
Yeah, so he knows his stuff when it comes to those things. And then my wife actually does all of our graphics and all of those kinds of things to make it look good, because I suck at those things. But the one thing that we kind of lack is that understanding of how to do social media. So if anybody's got any suggestions, hit me up, tell me how stupid I am, send me an email, tell me how bad I am at this stuff. And
I think more than anything, dude, it's finding the right person, the right champion, right? Mm-hmm. Even with my stuff or whatever, like, you can sit here and you can shout from the rooftops all you want, dude, but nobody's going to hear you until you find that right person that can help you with the certain,
of course.
help you fill certain holes, right?
Yeah, I mean, we were even told how awesome our tech would be for China for a number of reasons.
Sure.
But I mean, that requires money to get into that market and a champion to help us really kind of get to that market. Mm-hmm. And I mean, it's something that we want to do, because it's not just solve agriculture for the U.S. We designed our systems to be able to put in places like remote Africa or Afghanistan that can do these things while accounting for the fact that the labor isn't going to be super technology advanced. That's the other problem with a lot of these vertical indoor hydroponic companies. You almost need a STEM degree to even be able to harvest lettuce from these places. Yeah. I mean, it's the same thing that happened to a lot of mechanics, right? Once cars went from being mostly mechanical to mostly computers, a good chunk of mechanics lost their job, and that's
suddenly you had to have an IT degree, essentially.
Yeah, essentially to work on cars. And I mean, that's kind of what's going on with agriculture as well. Is either you still do the same old thing the same old way, which we're losing the ability to, or you need a freaking advanced STEM degree in order to be able to work at a farm, for crying out loud.
Isn't that crazy?
I mean, that's insane. Yeah. So I mean, but that's where we're at. That's what we're doing, and hopefully these kinds of things where we keep telling our cool stories and chatting with people, and they'll find us and enjoy. But I mean, that's just one of the things we're doing. The rest of it, we're still trying to keep light of the situation, have a good time, and
right on, man.
Meet new friends. And
I gotta tell you, it's been a hell of a time.
Yeah, we probably could keep going for like 4 hours,
but I think we're at a pretty good point right now.
And I think you and I both have other things we have to get to today.
I got stuff to do. We've got places to be.
I actually have an investor meeting I got to go talk to, who's actually happens to be from China.
So, oh, cool.
Lives here in Seattle now, but he lives in Seattle now.
Say, what upon your banchang shuo ni hao.
Although isn't
it just says my friend Brian? Well, banchang is my Chinese name, but yeah, my friend Brian says hi, basically.
Yeah.
But cool, man. Yeah, dude, it's been a great time chatting, man. Maybe somebody hears this. Can you tell us a little bit? I mean, obviously it's not an infomercial, but can you give us a little plug? What do you tell us about the name of your company? How do we get a hold of you? That kind of thing.
Yeah, so it's Revolution Agriculture, and it's simply revolutionagriculture.com. And you can find our social media links from there. Some of them might find Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn, but that's how you find us. If you're interested in being a host or a customer, there's places to sign up as both. If you want to help, tell me how stupid I am at doing my job. I'm always interested in hearing that feedback as well. But if you're going to give criticism, don't be surprised if at first I reach back with a passive aggressive, haughty remark. That's just how it goes. You be mean, you get mean back. But we'll figure it out. I'm always up for suggestions, and if there's a champion in the winds out there that can help us figure it out, how to get to the next step, how we could use it. Like I said, we're out to really change how things go, and we need all the help we can get. And I appreciate Brian having us on here to,
Right on.
or Bonchon, half the city over here.
Half the city, that's right.
So we can,
shout out to half the city.
and if you know half the city over here and not me, or Brian and not me, then reach out to Brian. He'll put you in touch. So
Right on, man.
appreciate it, man.
Hell yeah, dude. It's been a good time.
You too.
Give it up for Richard Brion, guys.
You've been listening to Half the City with Brion Schoenborn, presented by 8B Media. Be sure to subscribe to this podcast, share it with your friends, and leave a solid 5-star review to ensure these stories get spread far and wide. For more information, as well as to listen to other shows, including Relentless, a survivor's search for passion, purpose, and inner peace, and Beyond Relentless, be sure to check out 8bmedia.com. Thank you for listening.